Charles is going to talk about the background to us trying to establish the Furnishing Industry Skills Forum, which may or may not be what we end up calling it, because it's quite hard to say FISF without lisping or sounding or spraying the room. What's clear from today is I think the need to bring all constituents of the industry together with a common voice and address the issues that we've been talking about. So I'll hand over to Charles to talk more about that. Forwards that way.
Thank you very much. Skills and training are an ongoing and unresolved issue. Anyone disagree? Anybody agree? Yeah. Okay, I've been in this industry for 40 years. I've been in the Worshipful company for 30 years. I'm just bragging compared to those who were earlier. And the issue about skills, training and education, it goes round like my mother-in-law used to go on. It just goes on. It keeps coming round and round and round. And it's ongoing and it's unresolved. Not that it'll ever be resolved, but it's a present issue that we're debating now in the same way it was debated 20 years ago. And sadly, skills is a low priority item in the vast majority of furniture companies' agendas. And I think part of the problem is a huge amount of concentration is on the funding of, and a lot today has been talking about funding rather than the need. It's something that, there's money for it, therefore we'll only do it if we get more money rather than what is the need within the industry for it. And you'll remember, Martin and I haven't cooperated on this, but Mind the Gap survey has been mentioned quite a bit, and if you've read this excellent BFC document, it refers to Mind the Gap. Just as a little advert, Mind the Gap was produced by FIRA, the Furniture Industry Research Association. Fantastic organisation. If you're not a member, you need to join. Okay, I happen to be chairman of FIRA, but that's an aside issue. FIRA is the association in this industry that does research on behalf of the industry. And Martin also referred to this. This is shocking. Is your business attractive to young people? 48% said no. 25% said they didn't know, and 27% said yes. I mean, that's absolutely appalling. And your young man, Tom, I love that, tart it up a bit. I don't think it's tarting up we need to do. It's something up here in our industry that we just don't believe enough in ourselves. And some of the things we learned, this is contact from manufacturers. 10% actually have some contact with, oh no, that's retailers, beg your pardon, 35% with their local schools. That's not bad. And the really interesting thing is 75% of manufacturers do have contact with their local training providers. They know where to get training from. However, Martin turned this around the other way. If you look at this, how good is that training? The well bit, and in my view, you should say the training is good. It's well meets the ends. The well bit is the top bit. So basically, over 75% of the training that's provided in the minds of manufacturers is not good enough. And apprentices, interestingly, 49% of people, no, which way around was it? I currently don't need apprentices is 49%. I currently employ apprentices with a third, and half don't need apprentices. Well, they've not studied this chart, the ageing workforce. I stand here as a member of the beyond aging workforce because I don't work anymore. I've been kicked off I'm not 65 by the way, you can tell, but I'm in the 60 plus bit. And you can see the darker blue is what it looks like now, and the lighter blue is what it'll look like in 5 years' time. The workforce is getting older. It's getting older at that end, and it's just going to get worse as an issue in terms of skills. This is what we talked about 15 months, 18 months ago. Our industry has no institute, has no body which says you're a furniture maker. It's a Wild West, it's a free-for-all. You get people who've done all sorts of things drifting into the industry, myself included. And so, I'm not saying we don't have any standards, but it's a very, very fragmented industry. But it's a very successful industry. There are a lot of people who have a fantastic career, and it's an industry that, okay, we sometimes have some economic downturns, but most of the time this industry does better and better. And this is the landscape that we face. These figures are from, they're from the FIRA research document that if you're a member of FIRA, you get for free. If you're not, you pay £1,000. But if you listen to some, with me talking, I'll show you some of the figures, but you're not allowed to take pictures because I'll charge you for it, okay? Number of enterprises from 2012 to 2015 has gone down. Turnover of the industry up from 6.5 billion. This is based on manufacturers in the UK, so obviously the furniture industry is much bigger because there's a few imports, and retailers double or treble the price, so the turnover is much higher. So 6.5 billion up to nearly 8 billion over that time period. Employment in manufacturing down from 86,000 to 80,000. Any accountants in here? So total employment costs from 1.6 billion to nearly 2 billion for 6,000 less people. What does that tell you? People are getting paid a lot more in our industry. The industry is becoming a more attractive place to work. That's not just because of Jonathan's bonus. Sorry to pick on you, Jonathan. You pick on me normally. I don't get a bonus anymore because I've retired. But that is because our workforce is getting paid more in our industry. That's what's happening. Manufacturing is getting smaller in terms of the number of people. Technical skills are becoming more and more important. And here's the sizes for, I've put it in turnover bands at the bottom, but the top one's the interesting one. It's got a pointer. I'll go and point. So if you look at this band here, this is employment, 0 to 9 people. So that's nearly 5,000 companies. 10 to 50 people is about 1,000 companies. 50 to 250 companies. And Silent Night plus 39 other companies in the top category there. Interestingly, if you look at number of employees, 25% of our industry employees work in companies of 9 people or less. 25% work in between 10 and 50, 25% between 50 and 250, and 25% in those top 40 companies. So we have a really diverse industry. The needs of Silent Night compared to a designer maker are the same skill needs, but their scenario that they're working in is very, very different. And the spread of businesses across the United Kingdom is really, really interesting. I live in High Wycombe. I know a bit about the industry history there. High Wycombe used to be the only place of value for furniture in the UK in 1910. The industry has spread out since. The industry's everywhere. Our industry is across the nation. We think of the M62 corridor because there are a couple of really large companies up there, but the industry is everywhere in this country. And we face complex and changing scenarios. Kathy said, a couple of years before there will be change. Martin said, working in this is like wading through treacle. We met a lady from the Food and Drink, what was the organisation called?
National Skills Academy.
The National Skills Council for Food and Drink. She was going to give us all an MVQ for the amount we drink in this place. And she said she'd met 7 government ministers in the last 10 years. And the best way she could describe government policy and action on education and training is that sequence from the Wallace and Gromit film. You know, the one with the train and the dog on the front laying the track? She said, that's government policy. That's our government policy. And we know where we are now with its huge complexity. Gary's a barrister. You're a barrister?
No.
Solicitor, sorry. Do the work. You know, he's got a big brain and he's got a headache at the end of the day, okay? So it is complex and changing. And there isn't at the moment a single focused organisation that's trying to focus and approach this on behalf of the industry. There's been a history of lots and lots of different organisations. Most of them grew out of dealing with state funding, dealing with how does the money come through, but now there aren't any. There's lots of trades associations, some excellent trade associations. But at the Mind the Gap conference in October, year before last, we agreed on various things. And one thing we agreed on is this industry needs a centralised body, organisation, debating chamber, whatever we call it a forum, where education and training and skills can be addressed on behalf of the industry. And that's what I'm pleased to tell you Gary has agreed to chair.
Yes, so, well, it becomes ever murkier, but the need to do it, I think, becomes ever clearer. So, as Charles said, I think we can all see how fragmented things are. The idea of the new forum is to provide a single venue that covers all the key issues relating to education and training. And education on all the, from beginning to end, about what we've been talking about today. Hopefully, that comes with benefits, because there's no point putting in this effort if it isn't going to benefit the industry. But the point is that combining those efforts, it brings together the trade associations, the furniture makers charity, all the relevant constituents. And I think we need to be laser focused here, because if we're not, we'll get distracted, and there's too much going on here unless we cut to the quick and focus on establishing the key points. Now, what those are, there's going to be some debate about, but once we've decided we're going to, if I do one thing, it'll be stick to those, because there's too much to actually cover all at once. We've got to decide what are the key areas and stick to that. Okay. So in terms of the purpose, this is what we think it's going to be. There's going to be debate, and actually even out of today, I think things are starting to move on. But there should be a forum for identifying and developing education and training needs. What are those needs? Okay, support the current Trailblazer effort that's already in place. Promote and develop apprenticeships in this newer age of the levy. Sounds quite biblical, doesn't it? And on the back of that, we need to organise the voice of the manufacturers. I think if I've heard one thing today, it's that we need industry to come to the table. We need to engage with industry, get the ideas, give industry what it needs. You can only do that if you ask industry and listen. So we'll survey them, we'll talk to them, and then run an annual conference which brings everyone together to discuss what people have said, what people want, what people need. Lobbying of government is clearly key here, and the BFC currently does that for the furniture industry. We need to work out how to engage properly with the BFC and take that forward as the industry body for this. And we're going to need help from lots of different people. We're going to need to set up subgroups to go off to work on key areas. It might be the kitchen area. It might be about learning in general. It might be who knows what. But we need people to go off, work together, look in depth into an issue, come back and report back in. And at the moment, certainly as an employer, I've got no idea where to go to get access to training for my staff, to recruit, to anything like that. So what we need to do is put that all in one place, because you can search on Google and it comes up with 100 million different things. So I think the BCFA have agreed to help us with this, putting together a database and a website that you can go, you know where to look, and all the relevant courses and educational support is there in one place. Who's going to be in it? All welcome, we think. Well, more the merrier, let's face it. Unless we engage all parts of the industry, we're not going to be successful here. But fundamentally, to start with, that's you can all read the different. What was the AMUSF? I knew someone would know. Master Upholsterers. Sorry for my ignorance. Trade associations. We need to identify the key players, the key training providers, the key colleges. Occupational Awards Limited, and you've already committed to the industry in a way by the work you've already done. We need to have you included. As I said, manufacturers, industry are key, not just manufacturers. Potentially other people, if Charles will let them in, through the trade associations, and bringing together at the annual conference. And we want individuals engaged in this. They'll do that through the working groups, through day release from the day jobs. People, and if industry don't get this and give to it and see the benefits, we'll struggle. We need help. We need support. Stakeholders, slightly different to who's going to be in it, but it's about making those decisions. We don't want to be a lame duck, because we can all save our time and go about doing what we do now, unless this actually achieves anything. As it says, still to be worked out, but you can see the type of bodies and people we feel need to be involved in this. UK government's on there. I like to say it's way down the list. There's an awful lot. There's a lot going on in everyone's minds and headspace now. We need to try and bring that all together. And as we develop FIST, as it shall henceforth be known until we come up with something else, we'll absolutely take the ideas that we've heard today. And I would firstly say thank you to the speakers who have given their time freely today to make it such a worthwhile experience. And thank you to the furniture makers for hosting, driving it in the first place. So please stay and have a glass of the fine wine that is always on offer here, and carry on. Let's carry on the discussion afterwards. Thank you for coming.